what happens here, pretty easy. You slip this through here like that. I'm going to clamp it down right on this little piece of heat shrink. Nah, that didn't go so smooth as that last video might suggest. Welcome to Nate's Garage and Bakery, coming back at you after a little hiatus. Here's a little video where I do a little hacking, do a little Harbor Freighting on that Cut50 eBay plasma cutter. You know, Harbor Freighting, where you have to massage a few things right out of the box to make a complete shitball of a product actually work like it's supposed to and be a decent tool for now. Let's start with that big old electrical plug on that tiny little power cord. Now, I'm going to go ahead and guess that this being the Mongo 50 ampere, that this cable clamp's not going to be tight enough around this cord without it just slipping through anyway. Yeah, see? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a small hose clamp, which I just happen to have sitting around. Not even a metric one, it's freaking 1/4 inch. Something like that. There we go. Surely I can get that to work. Right? Get that opened up. Shove my wire through there. Now I'm going to clamp down on that hose clamp. I'll bet it'll grip then. Alright, so what we got here, finally, is a clamped cable. That ain't going nowheres. Alright. Go check out my last video, part 2 of this series, to see the rest of this wiring actually take place if you're interested in looking at that. Next, let's take a look at that there pain in the ass air hose. Basically, I had to take a heat gun to it. This one is going to wrap around and go to here. Now, they give you all sorts of hose up in here, and if you use all of it, you're going to have a whole big mess of spaghetti back in here. Well, I ain't going to be like that. I'm going to be like this. That, ouch, that, oh, that's what I heard about. That hose right there is a pain in the ass to get over that fitting, and probably those too. Yay! I'm going to use my trusty heat wrench here. Maybe I won't light it on fire, you know what I'm saying? But I'm going to heat up a little bit at the end here. It's probably going to act like shrink tube and make it even worse. It's got a little bit of play in it now. Well, at least a little more than it did. And, well, you're gonna have some fun with that, aren't you? Yeah. Holy crap on a stick. What I'm noticing here actually is that I don't know if it was from the packaging and the zip ties that were on there or what, but there's actually a narrow end in the end here. I'm gonna get jiggy with that end there and cut it off a little bit. So we have nice, fresh, virgin, whatever. Man, I need a new blade or something. Holy cow. Either that or this is China tough. Holy crap. Alright. Let's see if that goes on any easier. Why do I doubt it? Holy smokes. Good gravy. God bless us all. Good son of a... Holy shit, folks. Boy, that's a chore. I'm gonna see if I can't bevel out the inside of this motherfucker. Crack up. Maybe. Alright. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna do anything. Boy, if that end were just tapered a little smaller to start with, it'd be easier to slip this cracker over it. Good grief. Oh my God. Folks, I tell you what, this could get on your nerves. Alright, that's quite a bit softer than it was. Hey, look at that. Look at that, everybody. Finally got that damn thing over the top of that stupid barb. Well, it should never damn come off. There we go. It's on there now. Good. Ouch. Good grief. Cramping up on my wrist here. Now, if you were to use all of this, well, whatever. But I'm just going to use enough of it to come around the corner here. All this is the gauge up front. So let's start there, shall we? Let's not cut it too short. We can always shorten it. We can never lengthen it. Now this, I think you just pull it and push it in there. So be real persuasive. Well, now you're just watching me hot step it through a bunch of bumble crockery. I cut the hose too short, so when I bent it around the corner, it kinked the hose. I put the heat gun on it, made the kink worse. I put a zip tie on the kink in order to try to round it back out, subsequently making another kink. What have we learned here? We have learned not to half-ass it. Looks like I'm going to have to undo this and fuck a bunch of dumb shit. This hose is a pain in the ass. How much did I have to stretch to get over that barb? Alright. Alright, that's nice and juicy right now, so it should, with a minimal of third-degree burns on my fingers, should, holy shit, should, good God, it's warm, go up over that murder farter. Tardar. Now, what we're going to do is the same deal with this one down here, which from there to there. That's actually what's going out the torch. Should be warm enough. You know, the girlfriend's hair dryer, girlfriend slash wife's, or both, their hair dryers probably do just as good, ow, as this freaking thing here, the volcano gun. This doesn't have to be super long. You just have to keep it from kinking. My poor yellow paint job here is just gonna get the brunt of this. It's actually not that bad of a paint job. Powder coated or something. It's on there well. You can barely see where this knife is making dents in it. Ah, yes, it says Hong Chang PU hose. Yeah, it's PU, all right. 10 by 6.5 millimeter. If you got a line on other hose that you can get, it's 10 millimeters by 6.5 millimeters. Not sure which. Oh, 10 millimeter out, 6.5 millimeter inside diameter, maybe. Oh, so much easier to work with. Which means we can also make this shorter. I'm not trying to have a bunch of flying doohickeys back around here, so... Ouch! See where I put a nice dent there in my knuckle from punching that thing? Bastard. There, but it's on, so ha ha ha. Check it out, people. My tube is all hooked up, and I'm only bleeding once. Now we are going to test out the air connection and figure out that there is a leak internally to this plasma cutter. Join me now for this next adventure in the Cut50. So my tank regulator over there is set for 90, 100 psi on this line. We got air hooked up into here. This is all the way turned in, so I got nothing up here to start with. If I pull the lever, the little knob up, and start screwing it in, looky there. I got me some air pressure. Check that out. There's 0.2 bar. What are we looking at here? Kilograms? Oh, geez. Okay, well, this gauge is in metric, not PSI, and I can hear it leaking in here. So I'm going to have to take this cover off and fix that leak. Just like I heard about. What we have is not a failure to chooch, but a failure not to chooch when chooching is not required. I'm going to have to take this apart and find the air leak that's between here and that gauge. It sounds like it's right here behind this grate, which means it's right here behind this gauge, which is exactly where I saw somebody else have problems with it. Of course, if you have a shop air supply where you've got 10 billion CFM of shop air and you don't really care, then maybe you don't really care. I kind of care. So we'll get a chance to see what's in this yellow heap of loving, cutting, blowing your mother. Alright, what I'm seeing here as I turn this around is that these two screws that hold in the handle have nothing to do with holding this cover on. Alright, what lurks beneath the yellow cover? Looks like circuitry. So we're having a look inside the old Cut50 here. The problem, and why I had to take the cover off, is that there is an air leak between the incoming air back here and the gauge up here. I'm guessing it is right here, that threaded insert to the back of the gauge here, which on the other end is this quick connect hose that runs back and into the other side of this connector here. So this has some pipe threading on it right here. You can see it. See that little pipe threading right there? So I'm not thinking that's leaking. I'm thinking that little bastard right there is leaking. But while we're in here, let's take a look around, shall we? We got our big caps down here. This is what kept that sucker powered up after I unplugged it. We have a bent ass circuit board. I don't know how well that's showing by the camera, but do you see this bow on here? Yeah, that's real nice. I mean, it's everything's looking half decent except for the occasional rust you see on a bolt here and there. Obviously, not the most highest anything, or more rust on there. What's going on under this thing here? I'm trying to figure out why this is so bowed. Wow, that is noticeable. I'm gonna be kind of careful here and keep my other hand on top of my head or something while I do this. I'm guessing it was put in there and soldered in place such that it's got that bow built right the hell into it. You know what though? If it works, who cares, right? I paid $230 for this thing off of eBay. You can't complain about that if this thing actually cuts metal like I want it to. I wonder if this stuff is actually tight in here. Not so much. So while I'm in here, I'm just checking out a few things. See how well the thing's put together to start with. You know, it's in there. I'm not going anywhere. These little spring clip lock washers back behind these screws that they'll probably keep stuff from going anywhere. Ooh, boy, that was looser than loose. See the incoming power down here. It goes underneath that bottom circuit board there, so it's not really a whole lot you can see. There's the air hose to the torch back there, which is clamped on with a hose clamp on another barb. So that's not likely to leak there, at least. Same deal up front there. There's another hose clamp on a barb fitting for the front end also. And you can see how that works is you got the air incoming there. You got that copper bar right here, which is actually the power to that connector. So that connector is both air and, since it's brass, also power. Yeah, it's not looking that terrible. I guess it depends on what you consider terrible. Yeah, that circuit board is, whoo, boy, it's got some wow and flutter in it. It bows this way, and that comes back up for a nice little flip up here at the front end. That's looks like maybe they got about 45 pounds of solder, maybe 50. Maybe that's why it's called the Cut50. Nice little leftover something there on the circuit board. It's always good to have leftover metal parts hanging around. But yeah, that's not going anywhere. This whole thing back here is actually the air valve, so that gets fired by the circuitry to let the air actually come through, and this is where the entry, it gets stopped right here until you pull the trigger on the gun, and then that sucker opens up and starts a blowing, just like your mom. I'm probably ruining the whole thing by actually tightening these screws. It's probably engineered into it to be loose. Well, there you go. There's your Cut50 internals. Nice big heat sinks in there to do some stuff like sink and heat. Like I said, for $230 delivered to my door, yeah, I don't think any of these circuit boards are actually straight. They don't share a plane between the front and the back side of them. I mean, it's conformal coated on the top board here. Conformal coating doesn't necessarily mean it's straight, but hey. Let's get on with our repair here, shall we? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so on this gauge up front here, the square nut that's on the back of the gauge itself is an 11 millimeter. There's my 11 millimeter to brace that. The actual hex nut back here that screws into that is a 14 millimeter. It's roughly a 14 millimeter. It's probably actually something standard SAE for some stupid reason. There's our air connection, which if we just push that in there, we could release the air hose, which I'm going to do actually just to make it easier to screw that back in place. And we need to thread lock that. Now here is the perfect opportunity, if you're thinking ahead and if you have a gauge, or if you have a gauge that actually uses this same bolt pattern here, if you wanted to change this over to something that actually reads PSI as opposed to bar. I don't think I have anything like that. Well, you know, what better opportunity to learn how to read pressure in bar than to be forced to, right? What I'm going to do, as opposed to trying to get my big old Flintstone fingers in there, to wrap that, is actually just go ahead and take this mother off of there. And by taking these screws out, you actually are taking the entire back of this gauge apart, looks like. So now we got the gauge out of there. And like I said, this would be the opportune time to go ahead and change this out for you to have the same kind of mounting threads on the back of your new gauge as what this already has. Now, good lord, that's loose, but that's usually screwed in place, so it's not really loose per se. This is what needs to be wrapped in thread sealant tape. Once again, you want to wrap it around the thread in that direction. Careful not to get any in the airway. You don't want any boogers up in your boogerless shit. You know what I'm saying? And snippy snippy. If I put that on there now, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get those two screws back in there, so I'm going to wait. And this is going to go right back in here like it was. So we've got screw number 1 here. Okay, we've got our gauge back in place. It is tight, which means we can put our little adapter here on for the quick connect. Let's kind of scrape that back out of the way so yet again we don't get goop all up in there, which probably doesn't really matter for this particular part because it's just the gauge. Always a good idea to brace what you're trying to tighten against, otherwise you're running the risk of torquing a hole some a bit right off the front of the face of the thing. This doesn't have to be ultra super tight because the thread tape will do its job and keep things from being as crappy as they could be. Stick this back in its quick connect here. Just shove it in there and it will keep itself in there. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we can reconnect our air and see if it leaks. So we'll hear a little bit to start with. Question is, well, there's a leak back here too. So if it was leaking up here, it's not leaking here anymore. Now there is very definitely a leak back here. Son of beach. And I don't know if it's because of the, well, and that's probably what it was right there, is that hose back here was not pushed all the way into the quick connect. Let's see if that fixed it, shall we? Hey, do we have pressure? We do! Alright, so that's as easy as that fix was. All I did to fix this leak was push this hose in all the way. I still get a leak here. I'm still feeling it actually. What I'm probably going to do is take that all apart and re-thread seal it. Just so I've had my fingers on it all while I was in here anyway. You know what I'm saying? Alright, I did the same thing back here as I did up here. I took everything apart. I re-pipe thread, whatever the thread stuff is, thing in the bob, and I put it back together and I pushed the thing in, and now I got the air hooked up. Now we're going to see if this thing holds air. Pressure on the gauge. 0.2. 0.4, which is about 40% of the way up the gauge. I'm not feeling any air. I'm not going to say that my sense of touch is just so sensitive that it will feel any air leaks, but I believe we got the sucker licked. That's right, folks. For $230, you too can work on your brand new piece of equipment right out of the box. Alright, let's put this bad boy back together. screw holes are available on the side. Now, I made the cardinal mistake here already in that I tightened something up before I put all the other screws in place. So I'm gonna follow that from here on out, because I'll get bit in the ass by it here invariably. Two screws left. One screw left. Now we tighten all these bastards up. So what have we learned here? In my opinion, this is no different from buying anything from Horror Fright, whatever you want to call it. In order to get something that works pretty decently, you got to do a little work on it. You got to do a little massaging on that sucker before you even start using it to get it to be just right. You got to get into the new calipers and brush them down and sand them down a little bit so that they work all nice and smooth. You got to take the drill press vices apart and get in there and brush them out, all the junk and crud, and maybe oil them up real nice before they work real nice, or at least as nice as they're going to. Same thing, you got to get in there and fix a couple things that they kind of just overlooked that really didn't affect the operation of the thing. It just annoyed the shit out of me about it. The only difference is between this and the Horror Fright is that the you get a plasma cutter there, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 times as much as this little dude was. Okay, this video is already stupid long. What you've seen here so far is everything I have done to this point to get this plasma cutter working to my own expectations. Would have worked straight out of the box, minus the power wiring you have to do first, and minus the air hookup you got to do first with, you know, putting the thing on the back of the case and all that junk. But air leaks annoy me, so I had to fix that for my own sanity. The next video on the Cut50, that's right, I'm going to call it the Cut50 from now on if I can remember to, is going to be replacing the work clamp cable. Not so much the clamp itself, but take a look at this cable connection in the background to the actual clamp. That is some bullshit right there. Also, maybe some information on consumables for the torch that I have found. That might not be the next video here on Nate's Garage and Bakery, but it will be a future video here for the Cut50. Oh yeah, it's another one in the books here at Nate's Garage and Bakery. It kinda makes me wanna rap! Yo, that'll be all for this episode. Please subscribe and thumbs up the video, unless you don't like my web content. In either case, please feel free to comment. Word to your mother.